that what?
Probably be uncomfortable if we had a president or a governor that could be here forever without being turned down. When either or both of you support term limits for our council, they seem to be rehashing the same issues over and over and over.
I just want to redirect the question slightly. So he's asking, would you be in favor of term limits for the city council of Ojai seats? And I do want to just say that the last person who had this seat that's up, I believe, was served for 26 years. Is that
Yeah.
23, sorry.
First of all, you mentioned that you didn't know whether they knew Ojai and Sacramento, but you know the governor was here looking at a house, so maybe they do know a little bit about Ojai. I kind of think we're fortunate he decided not to move here, but yeah, you know, term limits is a tough one. I guess my basic answer to that is yes. I would support term limits because I believe that getting new people through has its benefit. But by the same token, you lose a little bit of that longevity that you have and experience, and you know, some of the things that Lenny and I are both talking about in this campaign are leadership and experience, where I've had experience on the Redevelopment Commission and the Planning Commission and all the committees that I've served on, you know, starting with the Pergola Committee and the Ojai, you know, the Performing Arts Theater Foundation and things like that. And, you know, you lose a little bit of that when you term limit people out. But then again, it brings in new people. Now, the state's had term limits for quite some time. President has been a term limit for quite some time. But we still have these guys that have been in Congress forever and ever and ever. And you just wonder, you know, when are we ever going to get rid of them? So I would support term limits. In general, I'm not sure for the city of Ojai what that term limit should be, but it shouldn't be, you know, one term, maybe 2 terms. That'd be 8 years.
Isn't the system
3 years, yeah.
Isn't the system set up so that the mayor's appointing, he's not elected directly?
That's correct.
Always puzzling me.
Right.
The council people are elected and the mayor is.
Yeah, and that's not unusual in cities, and that's not unusual on our commissions. It generally rotates, but not all the time. But it doesn't rotate automatically. I think out of protocol it does. Right. Yeah. But I would support term limits. I think I'd probably say three terms. Yeah. Yeah, 12 years I think would be. The other thing is it seems like there's a little bit of an advantage to the incumbents. And you know, that's probably human nature, because if they elect you once, they may elect you again, or they don't know these new people and they figure what you have is better than what you might get. But because of that, I think it's important for these term limits, because that gets some of these incumbents out of there and gets some new thoughts, new ideas, and things like that. I had been on the Planning Commission for 9 years. And I decided that, you know, you need some new people on here. I loved being on the Planning Commission. It was a great opportunity to serve the city. But I really thought that, you know, it's time for somebody else to come in. So I resigned. Same thing with Tucker Adams. Tucker Adams was on for 2 years longer than myself. Absolute fabulous commissioner. And she resigned. Now we have some new people in there, and I think that's good for the city.
I'll be really old in 8 years, so I don't think you have to worry about my staying longer than 2 terms, even if I'm elected. I oppose term limits. I think it's a cop-out. You don't like the people who are in office, get out and vote them out. End the discussion. This is a democracy. If you like the people who are in office, vote for them. It's interesting. Congress has an approval rating of what, 20% or 19%, and the same people keep on getting reelected because everybody sort of says, "Well, I like my guy," you know. I like everybody else is a bum, but I like my guy. It's people have asked, and I want to turn this to something directly with the city, because I think it's more important than my personal opinion on term limits, and that's a matter of taken responsibility for what's yours. And there's been a lot of talk about Jerry Kersner. People ask me what I think about Jerry, and well, Jerry does this, and Jerry doesn't do that, and Jerry, who's city manager. The responsibility for the inaction is not Jerry. The responsibility for the inaction is the city council, because they're the boss. They can fire him, they can order him to do things, and if they let Jerry get away with doing nothing, then it's not Jerry's fault. And it's the same thing with term limits. If people keep on voting in the same person, that means either, one, the person's doing a good job. I can think of a whole lot of people who I would be crushed. You know, and I think we would be worse off as a country if they had been eliminated from office because of term limits. I can think of some people who, how they ever got elected to anything is a mystery. But the people voted them in. People can vote them out. In California, we've proved we can impeach a governor if we don't like the way he or she is performing the duty. So it's not about term limits. Term limits is the easy, lazy person's way out, I think.
That's great. So I think we're probably going to only take 3 more questions. And before we take 3 more questions, I just want to ask this one question, sort of about term limits. If you'd like to have term limits, I urge you to get a petition going and submit a municipal initiative.
Yeah.
Now, whether you'll be able to get past our city attorney is another question. Now, what I'd like to ask on that same vein is electoral politics here in Ojai. A lot of times what happens in our elections is people are voted in with 30% or less of the vote. That's because it's a giant cattle call, vote for 3, vote for 2 kind of situation. Would either of you be interested in trying to lead the council to changing the rules so that it would be, I don't know, something like an instant runoff voting situation, or each seat you have to run for that seat and you have to apply to run for that seat directly, so that we don't have this 30% and you're in kind of thing?
I read, I don't know if it was an email that you sent out about this, or you actually had something in writing that you gave to people. It's an interesting idea. The problems of people that you present are real. I don't know yet. I mean, I'm certainly happy to talk about it and discuss it, and I haven't made up my mind.
You know, the way that it's working now, granted, you could be elected to a city council position with clearly far less than 51% of the vote. But the thing is, sometimes you're running for 2 seats, sometimes you're running for 3. So the top 3 vote getters get those 3 seats, or the top 2 get the. It's still a legitimate way of running an election. And I don't think that in a town like Ojai, it would serve us to have seat number 1, and seat number 2, and seat number 3. I think the way that it's working is probably all right now. But I could be convinced otherwise if somebody came to me with an idea that made sense.